Hi, everyone. Really excited that you are joining us for today's ScholarCast. We will begin shortly. Just want to give everyone a few minutes to be able to log in, and then we'll get started. All right, I think we're going to get ready to start. Thank you again for attending our ScholarCast Med School Application Workshop presented by the Princeton Review. Really excited that you all have taken some time out of your busy day to join us for this event. But I think you're investing the time and you're investing in yourself. So really excited that you are starting this process. Just really quickly, if you could let me know if you can hear me. You can just put it in the chat. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and go with it. Everybody can hear, but if you do have any problems, please let me know. Um, so we're going to get started here shortly, just to kind of give you some housekeeping items for the event. So we're going to be recording this ScholarCast to be able to share with everyone on the call today. You'll get a copy, as well as some of our students who aren't able to join us today. So they'll also get a copy of the recording. We have your camera and your microphone turned off, but we encourage you to ask any questions throughout the event in the chat feature. And we'll get through those at the end. We'll get through as many as possible. I'll start collecting them for our speaker. But I just wanted to make sure you knew that you could ask questions in that chat area. Okay, well, I think those are the only things I wanted to tell you about. Like I said, I'm so excited that you're here for today's presentation. Our speaker, Christine Cather, is a graduate of UC Berkeley, and she is the Princeton Review's Director of National Partnerships. And they've been a partner of NSCS for many years. I'm so excited that we're doing more events with them because I think these are super beneficial to our members. Um, so from sitting on admissions committees, reviewing confidential applicant files, making recommendations for admittance or denial, to conducting research for the Children's Action Network, she has dedicated herself to student success. Christine engages college and high school students with motivational yet practical workshops to inspire the next generation of leaders. And that's who we're working with today is our next generation of leaders. All of our NSCS members are doing amazing things. And I know this is the first step getting to your preferred career, which is in the medical field. So I want to go ahead and introduce our panelist, our speaker now. Christine, if you want to join us.
Hey, can you hear me okay now?
You're good.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for making time to sit in and learn a little bit about the medical school application. We have lots of tips to share. So for those of you who RSVP'd and maybe you're watching this at a later time, hello. Later on in the chat, I will put in my email address so you can reach out with any questions so that we can get you the information that you need. So let me move a couple of boxes around so that I can get this slideshow going for you. And feel free to ask anything in the chat as well. I just want to make sure that that we get your questions answered. So right now I have, let me see if I can have the chat over to the side. Is that blocking views? Are you seeing blank boxes on here? Should I close out of some of these things?
You're good. We don't see it on our
Okay,
side.
fantastic. All right, so we're going to be talking about the medical school application because there are lots of different moving parts and pieces to it, and we want to make sure you're as prepared as possible and you apply with as much confidence as possible, knowing you've done all the things that you can do for a successful cycle. Here's my email here, christine.cather@review.com. Through our partnership, just know you do get a discount on resources as well as access to a lot of great free resources as well. All right. So we're going to be talking about why it's important to be a strong applicant. So by the numbers, how you can maximize your time in school or after during those gap years. So we'll talk about an application breakdown and we'll talk about resources that can help you stay on track and help you achieve your goals. And I love that many of you are probably going to be referring to this later because you are so busy, you are so driven. And the path to medical school is extremely challenging. This slide here is not meant to scare you. It's meant to prepare you so you know what to expect. We want to paint a clear picture and not sugarcoat it too much, but more students get denied than accepted to medical school each year. Given that, there are things that you can do to position yourself for success. Many of your friends have probably gone through the process successfully, and we know that you can too. But we also have to have a clear picture of what to expect so you can address obstacles and really be ready to put forth a strong application. So there are about 50,000 applicants. There's an average of about 10,000 to 17,000 applicants per school. And it's screened down where only about 300 to 500 students are called in for an interview. From there, only about 100 to 200 get accepted in that incoming class. So again, this funnel is not meant to scare you. It's meant to prepare you so you can take all the steps that you need to take in order to paint a clear picture as to why you are ready to be accepted into that incoming class and why you're ready to take on the journey of becoming a physician. So how can you maximize your time in school or after? This is where we're going to break down the actual application so you know the different puzzle pieces that have to fit together in order to paint that clear and sharp picture as to who you are and why you want to become a physician. So are all the pieces in place before you apply? The pieces that we're talking about are your grades and your test scores. And we're going to be talking about how that fits together, your activities and experiences, your leadership and service, your personal statement. And from there might be additional exams such as a preview exam or situational judgment test, the Casper exam, as well as secondary essays and then interviews. So there are a lot of different moving parts and pieces that we are here to discuss. So to begin with, we're going to start here at the brain. They're going to take a look and assess your academics. So your GPA and your MCAT score are typically an initial threshold that schools will take a look at, but it's not the end all be all. All the other puzzle pieces are very important. Your clinicals, your leadership, your academic, your service, your social, the way you're telling your story. But to be clear, the GPA and MCAT score is typically an initial threshold that schools will look at. And we want to paint the clear picture as to what it is that they're looking at and how they're breaking that down. So on the medical school application, you will see that BCPM and then the AO. So the BCPM are the courses that are under your biologies, your chemistries, your physics and math. So you'll see that BCPM GPA, and then you'll see the all other GPA. And then to supplement that, they will see then your MCAT score. And with your MCAT score, it is a 7.5 hour exam. So it takes time to build up that content knowledge, but not just the content knowledge, it's the application of that content into MCAT style questions. And then on top of that, it's building up the stamina to last and stay focused for that 7.5 hours. So there are lots of different things that have to come together in order for you to really feel like you're putting your best foot forward in terms of your GPA and your MCAT score. And on the MCAT, the sections of the MCAT are biochem, chem phys, psych soc, and then critical analysis and reasoning skills, which you'll hear referred to as CARS. Caveat to all of this, a lot of students think, gosh, I'm just going to spend all my time on the sciences. Note for yourself that the critical analysis and reasoning skills, which is pretty much like a dense reading comprehension section, but on steroids, the CARS section is where students' scores across the country, minus a handful of states, it's where the scores tend to dip. It tends to take the rest of your MCAT score down because of CARS. So if you think maybe, that's not as important, it has a great weight as well. So if reading and reading other types of materials like history, philosophy, all of those things, if that's not something you're doing now, I highly suggest you start doing that so you can start building up those muscles. So when you are preparing for the MCAT, then you are not just starting to build those muscles. You've been lifting the weights and doing those other things so that your muscles are strong. And now you're just putting it into practice into MCAT style questions. And so don't disregard CARS. And then also just know that you can have access to an MCAT practice test. So you see what the questions are like. You'll get a sense of, how can I start ranking these passages so that I can do them in the most efficient way possible for yourself, given your own strengths and weaknesses. And what is also great is that after the practice test, you can get a score analysis on our student portal. And this is all a complimentary resource, by the way. But on that student score report, you will get a high-level view of your strengths and weaknesses by subject so that you know where you need to spend the time. And it's a great baseline. And oftentimes it's just like ripping the Band-Aid. It's giving you that first initial step so you can keep going from there. So we highly encourage you to go ahead and dive in and take that MCAT practice test if it's close enough to when you'll be taking the MCAT, so you have that solid foundation as to where you can really spend your time. And how does the MCAT fit into all of this? Well, many schools preliminarily screen on MCAT and GPA. However, just note that all of the other pieces, clinicals, leadership, academic, service, social, your personal statement, your letters of rec, all of those things work together to paint that picture of who you are as an applicant. A strong MCAT score can help a lower GPA, but a poor MCAT score can negatively affect a strong GPA because the MCAT is that great equalizer where students across the country are taking this. So if you have a strong GPA and maybe not as favorable of an MCAT score, just know that you might need to put in a little bit more work in order to get that score up so it really tells that story and does not raise more questions. There also are great resources that you can look into and utilize now to start thinking about and organizing the programs that you're interested in applying to. So for instance, the medical school admissions requirement is a website. It is a paid subscription. It's not affiliated with the Princeton Review at all. However, I do like telling you about it in case that's something you would like to do. And in it, you can start researching programs and it breaks down GPA, test score, mission vision statement, all those things. you do not have to use that paid service. So you can start your own spreadsheet, do the research, start your own spreadsheet with the program name, the average GPA, the average MCAT score, bring in that mission and vision statement, because after SCOTUS ruled for race neutral admissions, that many programs really did deep dives into their mission statements, so that they could be clear as to the type of student that they're looking to bring into their program. So for instance, at Stanford, they clearly indicate innovation is important to them. So that's a code word for research. So are you focused on research as well? Do you have evidence of that in your application? So really knowing what the mission statement is of that program can help you make sure that you're highlighting the things that align with the program. So I'm not saying that you want to curtail what your own passions are to fit into someone else's mold. You are just trying to find those programs that align well with your own personal passions, and find a program that's a good fit for you. All right. Oh, in addition to the mission and vision statement, I suggest while you're in the website already, go ahead and pull in other parts about that program that are drawing you to that program, because those very specific details could come in very handy when you are doing your secondary essays. So with your primary application, you'll be entering in your coursework, uploading your transcript, outlining your 15 activities and experiences, and uh, writing in your personal statement. They've got the letters of recommendation. They have your MCAT score, your GPA. So after that initial primary application is submitted, it can take about 4 to 6 weeks to verify that primary application. And then after that, regardless of GPA and MCAT score, many programs will go ahead and send you secondary essays to do. And these are essays that are very specific to the programs. So for the secondary essays, you could be writing 3 to 5 essays per school within a 2 to 3 week period. So it will be a lot of deep diving into why this particular program, whereas the personal statement is to all the schools. Those secondary essays, you're really speaking to the people, the admissions committee, who walk those halls every day and walk with those students side by side. So they want to know about like why you want this program in particular. All right, and then after that, you've got interviews. Okay, so this is just a table that highlights MCAT and GPA means. Keep in mind that this is for MD programs. So for instance, back in 22, the mean MCAT score for applicants was a 505.9, but for matriculants, the ones who actually ended up going on, it was 511.9. For GPA, for the applicants, the mean was 3.59, and for the students moving on to MD programs, it was 3.74. When we're in person, we typically tend to see a little bit of deflation in the students' body language. If a DO program, so if an osteopathic program is also of interest to you, I highly encourage you to do your research. Find out what it is about an MD program that is attracting you to that, or find out more about an osteopathic program as well. So if you can shadow a DO, that's fantastic. With the DO, it is the MD and DO programs have very similar curriculums. However, there are additional hours of osteopathic manual manipulation that's included in that DO program to make it more of that holistic type of approach. The average MCAT scores are different significantly, as well as the average GPAs. However, what is fantastic is that the match rates from the MD and DO programs have come together a little bit more in terms of their averages. So there used to be more of the stigma around like, hey, if I'm in a DO program, I may not match. So that stigma has been going away. So find a program, again, that is the right fit for you. And I have not been checking the chat because it was blocking a little bit. So I just want to make sure, okay, I don't think I see anything in there right now. Are you guys all still with me? I don't know if you're able to give some sort of an action or just type into the chat real quick, just to make sure that you guys can hear me okay and make sure you're with me. Hopefully this is helpful. If you can just type a "we're here" or like yes, or what year you are in school, that would be fantastic, just so I have a sense. And if I'm just missing the chat for some reason and it's showing up somewhere completely different, I hope you let me know that too. But right now we should be all good, correct? You can hear me
Yeah,
okay?
I think
Okay,
we're all good. But I'll keep
awesome.
an eye on the chat for you too.
Thank you so much. Okay. So in terms of the coursework, that foundational spine, the coursework that will be covered in the MCAT, these are the courses that you should have under your belt in order to feel ready to really deep dive into the MCAT. So wherever that falls for you on your schedule and your class work, your course load, and your timeline, don't feel like you have to rush through um, and apply to medical school at the end of your junior year. For those of you not taking gap years, then that's great. You will typically be preparing for the MCAT the summer between your second and third year, fall of your third year, or doing a little cram type of prep in during your winter break. And then you can take the MCAT January, March, April, May, or June. If you need to take it a second time, make sure that you are allotting enough time to actually address some of the issues you had the first time. Do those full length practice tests, maybe deep dive a little bit into the car section if that is your where you're lacking a little bit, and then schedule that exam. The two mistakes we see students make a lot and often is number one, the first time around, they'll focus so much on absorbing the content, and they're not taking enough time to do those full length practice tests weekly. So they're not applying the content into MCAT style questions and they're not building up that stamina to last. So dive in, do the drills, do the questions, do the full length exams, and then spend the time building up like cars or whatever it is that is holding your score back just a little bit. And then in addition, one of the second pitfalls I want you to avoid is scheduling a second MCAT before you really have time to address your deficiencies from the first. So feel free, reach out after if we can help in any other way, but you do get discounts for your MCAT prep. And I highly suggest you just start with that practice test. Okay, so MCAT I've talked about a lot, but this is a good example of a breakdown of the day and how the total seated time adds up to those 7.5 hours. So when we talk about the brain and the spine and that GPA and MCAT score, it is not just the grades. I also want to make sure you are thinking about the transcript and the other pieces that will be considered when someone is reviewing your coursework and your transcript. So some of the other things that you can think about are the strength of your courses. They will look at, have you challenged yourself? What are your grade trends? What are those trajectories looking like? Just because you got a grade that was not your ideal, maybe in the beginning of your freshman year, that does not mean that you cannot keep moving on and moving on successfully to medical school. Grades trending up are fantastic, and people know that things happen as well. So what you can do now is just start really incorporating a lot of self-awareness to see and ask yourself truly what are your deficiencies and what are some things that you can do to fill those missing puzzle pieces, fill those holes in that puzzle so that when you are ready to apply, you have a really crisp, strong, sharp picture, vibrant picture of why you are ready for medical school. If grades are your issue, then there are other things that you can do. So we have some students who do a post-bac program. In the post-bac programs, you can do your own research on that. Some programs are focused on specific things, so you can find the post-bac program that really works well for your own needs. For example, if grades are an issue, look for post-bac programs that, or grades or MCAT, look for post-bac programs that really help you with the coursework, and perhaps they also incorporate MCAT prep. If gaining clinical experience is your deficiency, find programs that maybe incorporate clinicals as well as address some of the grades if that's still an issue. We have some students who don't really want to do a post-bac program because it's not something that, say they don't end up going to medical school, it's not something that they will carry around with them. However, we have some students who then do a master's, but keep in mind, if your science grades are the limiting factor for you, then a master's in a science to show that you can handle the academic rigor is where you can then shine. So, and then you can walk away and have that master's with you for the rest of your life. So, really just think about your own needs, bring a lot of self awareness into this journey, take a good hard look at what are your own missing puzzle pieces so that you can fill those gaps before somebody else points them out. And by that, I mean the admissions committee. So what are some things that you can do right now? Build a solid foundation in the sciences, take advantage of in-house resources. There are great pre-health advisors on your own campuses. Network here within your own organization, whether that's your local chapter or at the national level. Visit some student learning support centers on campus. Find other networking opportunities, whether those are research, clinical, shadowing. A lot of times, the conferences that you'll see on campuses are a great place for you to build networks and be ready to advocate for yourself to get more opportunities. Office hours. Make sure to take advantage of the office hours. And my suggestion is to start dropping into office hours early in the semester and do that consistently. In that way, you can start separating yourself from the crowd and really build relationships and rapport with your professors. And you never know which one of those professors can have then a research or clinical opportunity for you or shadowing from themselves or with a colleague of theirs. And then also, you never know which one of those people can then be a letter writer for you for those letters of recommendation. So there are so many things that have to work together. So knowing the different pieces can help you start planning your own journey so that you can be putting together your story in a way that shows that you are really ready to take those next steps. And then lastly, make sure that you are not ignoring the CARS section, the critical analysis and reasoning skills. As I said, that is a section where scores tend to dip. So do a lot of active reading after you read dense passages. What is the author's point of view? What's he really trying to say? Build those muscles so you are really, really ready once it comes time to do those MCAT full length practice tests. So we talked about the academic portion with the brain and that spine, but even students who have great GPAs and great MCAT scores, they might miss out on getting an acceptance. And what are the 3 pitfalls that we want you to avoid? So even with great grades and a great MCAT score, you could potentially be missing components of your application. You could be applying at the wrong time, or perhaps you're not packaging yourself well. So with missing components, that could be perhaps you don't have a lot of clinical hours, or if you're applying to a research heavy institution, perhaps you don't show evidence of your passion doing your own research or doing research at your school. So just really do a great self analysis and evaluation to see what your missing components could be and do that early in the process so you can figure out a plan to really fill those holes. A second pitfall, even with a great MCAT score and great grades, perhaps you are applying at the wrong time. And I mean this in 2 different ways. So the right time to apply. And I'm going to ask this in the chat, but if I'll ask it quickly. So if we don't have responses, it's totally fine. But when is the right time to apply to medical school? If you can add to the chat, when is the right time to apply to medical school? I'll give it just a little bit while I take a drink. When is the right time to apply to medical school? So when I'm thinking of this in 2 ways, the first way is when you are ready. It is not a race to the finish line. If you look up the average age of a first year medical school student, it is what, like 25 or 26 years old. So students are taking more time in between to either fill the gap with their grades through a post-bac program or a master's, or they're taking that time to roll up their sleeves and have that patient facing exposure so that they get those clinical hours. They do the additional research, they do the shadowing, whatever it is, the community service, take on more leadership opportunities, whatever it is for you, make sure that you're applying at the right time for you. when you have all the components that can make you as successful of an applicant as possible and show your readiness to handle the academic rigor, as well as the knowledge that you've had that patient-facing experience to know 100% that this is the path for you. And then the second way I'm thinking of applying at the right time is the time of the year. So most of your law school friends, or if they're applying to business school or master's or another PhD, traditionally you think, oh, they applied the fall of their senior year to get in the following year. For you medical school applicants, I'm going to say this in the time frame that refers to students not taking gap years, but just so that we're all on the same page. But gap years are phenomenal. But if you're not taking a gap year, that means that your application portal opens in the beginning of May of your junior year, and you could submit at the end of May or early June of your junior year. So the timeline is a little bit different. It's a little bit earlier than your law school and business school, other master's or PhD type of friends. All right. And the last pitfall we want to make sure you avoid is, even with great grades and a great GPA, perhaps you are not packaging yourself well. So maybe you've done all the clinical hours, you've done great community service projects, you've shadowed, you've done all the things on paper, but you're not able to put all those pieces together to tell a compelling story of why medicine is for you, why you want to become a physician. So make sure that you are putting in the time to really craft a story that paints a true picture, a layered picture of who you are, and really shows why medicine is the path for you. And you're incorporating evidence, strong evidence of your experiences that show that why. And that goes to our next piece here, the work and activity section, which is the heart of the application. Because as you can imagine, so many students have similar GPAs. So many students have similar MCAT scores. So the differentiator starts coming into play in the way that students describe their activities and experiences. And they talk about the growth and the transformative nature of those experiences. AAMC came out with core competencies. And these are core competencies that medical school admissions committees are then looking for in terms of the types of experiences you've had. Have you had growth in these areas? Commitment to learning and growth, cultural awareness, cultural humility. And I highly encourage you, I'm just talking about the main points right now, but I highly encourage you to go back and read the descriptions, because it can help you start really thinking about the types of things you can be doing now to enhance these competencies and really show that you have taken this path seriously. You know that this is for you, and you'll be able to then better describe the experience, the growth that you've had, the transformative nature of that experience. And that little vignette is what can make you stand out from the next person who has, they could very well also have 200 hours of a type of clinical experience, and they could have a similar GPA and a similar MCAT, but it's your description of your growth that makes it your own. And so students, many times students don't take the time to think about the story that they're telling, and that becomes an important piece, and that's that communication too. So in terms of competencies, commitment to learning and growth, cultural awareness, cultural humility, empathy and compassion, ethical responsibility to self and others, interpersonal skills, oral communication, and that comes through a lot in your interview as well as your letters. Reliability and dependability, resilience and adaptability, your service orientation, your teamwork and collaboration, and then those other pieces, the critical thinking, quantitative reasoning, your scientific inquiry, written communication, and then the science competencies. So there are a lot of different, again, pieces that will tell the story of who you are. And this activities and experiences section becomes the heart of your application. So really make sure that you are thinking about how you can enhance this portion of your application that can really then distinguish you from people with similar experiences in terms of the number of hours, as well as people with similar GPAs and MCAT scores. An easy way to remember what makes up the heart of your experiences is class. So clinicals, leadership, academic, service, and social. So clinicals, that's very straightforward, whether it's paid or unpaid. Leadership is so great because even if you have a hard time getting shadowing experience or a paid clinical, you can create leadership opportunities, especially here within NSCS at your local chapters or being a leader in a community project you're involved in, whatever that might be. Create and find opportunities for yourself to start sharpening those skills. And then in the academic realm, perhaps you are tutoring others, which can then also help you really get the information down yourself. And you get to practice that communication and really finding ways to articulate complex pieces of information and turn them into digestible, easy to understand blocks that will really help you sharpen those communication skills for you. Academic also includes like research. In terms of service, community service, service through your church or school, whatever that might look like. And then social. The last S is a piece that many students think, I don't have time to do anything fun for myself or maintain those activities that I love. But that is false. The social piece of who you are is also important because it tells that complete picture and it helps you hone those other skills, whether that's like teamwork or collaboration, communication. And it makes you interesting and it makes you relatable. So don't feel like you have to stop doing some of the things that you love. Whether that's photography, hiking, whatever it is, but when you're telling it in your activities and experiences, find ways to make it really personal to you. So instead of just hiking, it's, hike the national parks and did a, photojournalistic, whatever that might be. Find a way to make it just a little bit different and dive deeper in your descriptions so that you add that extra layer that becomes a story that only you can tell. And I love this graphic. I recreated it after listening to Stanford's Dean of Admissions for their medical schools articulate this. And at Stanford School of Medicine, the admissions committee will look at a barometer of participation. And in their barometer of participation, they are assessing your level of impact. So at Stanford, at the very bottom, just showing up, that's nice, but it's not enough for Stanford School of Medicine. Showing up for a long time, maybe you were part of a club consistently for 3 years. That's fine and dandy, but what they really want to see are students who are getting to these outer rungs. So have you had the leadership position? Did you find a way to be part of innovative research or whatever that might be? So get to that leadership, the innovation. Did you advocate for others through this role? And then ultimately, they're looking for students who created something that leaves a lasting legacy that then is passed down. So think about and evaluate your own level of impact in the activities that you're involved in and really take a hard look at what you've done and what can you do more. Again, this is not just to create a checklist that matches up with what somebody else wants of you. It's really finding a way to match it to your own passions. What drives you, and are you leveling up for yourself so that you can find a program that is a good fit and can help enhance you as a physician. All right. So we often have students ask, like, how many hours of clinicals do I need to do? I'm going to share a link after with to a pre-med management tool that gives suggestions as to the types of experiences that you can have and suggested number of hours. And what is so great about these activities and experiences that are the heart of your application is it gives you that patient-facing exposure. So you're actually seeing what it's like to work with patients and you're seeing physicians and medical teams in action, as well as rolling up your sleeves and digging in with your own hands. So that is highly important. It cannot be a theoretical, I think I want to be a physician. They have to know that you've seen and done the things so that when you face obstacles and challenges, which are inevitable, that they know that your why is so strong because you've seen it, you've done it, you know it, and you're going to keep going. Even if you come across challenges, you're going to push through because you know that this is the path for you. And so when they admit you to the program, they are rooting for you. Once they admit you to the program, they're rooting for you to make it all the way through and match in that residency program. All right. So, what are some other things that you can do? Really try to find or create leadership experience for you, whether that's in college, in your community, and then academics. You can tutor others, you can get involved in research, find other ways to enhance that academic piece of who you are. And then service, like I said, campus based, community based, social justice, and advocacy was a bucket that recently got added to the application, church related, hospital volunteering. And then for social, continue to pursue your personal interests and maybe you can find a clever way to tie that into your story. So there are lots of different moving parts and pieces that make up who you are. And um, the application itself, you need to think of a way to pull all the pieces together to tell that story of who you are. And so these are just some ideas for the work activity section. What are some things that you can do right now if you need to enhance this particular section of your application? Well, make sure you are preparing your resume, your LinkedIn, be open to networking at conferences or on campus activities within NSCS. Keep a journal. If you don't already, I highly suggest that you keep a journal and you reflect on your daily activities. You never know when one of these stories that you're adding into your journal becomes a jumping off point, or maybe you're referencing it when you are selecting your 15 experiences and your 3 most meaningful. So you get extra characters to expound on the 3 most meaningful experiences. Or perhaps there's a story that you are putting in your journal now that's going to become a piece of your personal statement. But curating those stories and doing that self analysis and thinking about your growth while you're in the moment can make those stories so much richer and add so much depth instead of thinking back like, oh my gosh, 2 years ago, I think this is what happened. So keep that journal and think about these questions. Reflect on the transformative nature of the experience. What impact did you make, and how did you grow through that experience? And then also be thoughtful about when you will be applying to medical school so you can plan your activities accordingly. Because the schedule is so tight for you, you want to make sure that you're being proactive in terms of making sure you're fitting in what you need to fit in, which takes that preparation. Because a clinical experience doesn't happen overnight. You really have to build up to preparing your LinkedIn, or you going to office hours, you're dropping into hospitals, and then a lot time for the interview process and the onboarding process. So there are a lot of things that will make the process feel even longer. So just a lot for that in your timeline so that you can apply when you are ready. Letters of evaluation that will differ per school. So research the minimum and maximum numbers of letters that the programs you're interested in would like to see. Think about who your letter writer should be. Attend and be active in office hours. Oftentimes you'll see that one of the letter writers should be a professor in an upper division science class, perhaps. But look to the specific verbiage of the programs you're interested in because they will be very clear as to who your letter writer should be. So you need to know ahead of time who you can start building these relationships with. Plant the seeds early and stay in touch and make it as easy as possible for that letter writer to write you a strong letter. And how can you do that? Well, you can provide them with your resume, your LinkedIn. On our pre-med management tool, if you take the time to enter in all of your activities and experiences, it prints out a PDF that compiles all of them. And so maybe that's something you want to share. If you have a good first draft of your personal statement, perhaps that's something you can share. Just make it as easy as possible for that letter writer to really go into depth about you so it doesn't sound like you asked them at the last minute and now there's a generic letter that sounds like it was written by AI. All right, and then your personal statement. Think about how you can pull together stories and evidence that will then paint a compelling portrait of who you are. Pick a polished theme that is very true to you. At the end of this personal statement, if you took your name out of this and you had a bunch of personal statements in front of you, could people point out that this particular personal statement belongs to you, or could the same story be told by 10 other people in the room? So try to find a way to tell your story in a way that's polished but very true to you. Keep your authentic voice. Oftentimes, you have so many people editing your essay that they might edit your voice right out of it. So resist that temptation. Make sure to keep your authentic voice. It should sound like you, and make it resonate, make your stories resonate and transport the reader into your world. And make sure it shows that clear motivation as to why you want to practice medicine. It can't be so drastic in terms of the different stories you're telling, where all of a sudden the reader is wondering, does this person even want to practice medicine? So make sure that you are pulling it all together along with your activities and experiences and the descriptions of those. The letter writers are now supplementing the stories you're telling, and they're adding further evidence as well as your coursework that you've taken. So all of these are working together along with then your secondaries in a few months that will tell that story of who you are. And a reviewer of your application will take away about 3 to 5 key points from any part of your application. So make sure that you dedicate enough time to make each piece of your application count. Let's see, let me go through this. So just like you will be presenting your patients in medical school, the committee is doing an applicant presentation, and they're assessing, planning, and diagnosing. Are you, as an applicant, ready to take the next steps? Are you ready to join our incoming class? So give them every reason why to say yes. And the more you can self-diagnose your detractors or those missing puzzle pieces of your application and take the time to fill those, the better off the committee will see, and they'll see you as that full, complete picture, and they will see you as ready to take the next step. But again, make sure that the mission aligns too. They are looking for students who match the mission and vision of the program. So what resources do we have that can help you achieve your goals, and what tools do we have to help you stay on track? I will send a PDF of this deck as well so that you can keep this timeline for yourself, and this will be in the year that you will be applying. So for instance, I'm using an example of a student who is not taking a gap year, even though I highly advocate for gap years to get more experience or to help boost the grades, whatever that is. But if you're not taking a gap year, just to keep us on the same page, if you've taken the classes covered by the MCAT, then we're starting here on the left. At the end of your second year, we have students prepping for the MCAT between their second and third year, and then maybe they take the MCAT the fall of their third year, and maybe they take it again in January. In October, MCAT registration typically opens up. November to January, you can start drafting your personal statement and plant the seed with your letter writers. In February, you can have a good first draft of your personal statement and a good first draft of your 15 activities and experiences. MCAT registration opens again. So for instance, it's opening February, I think 19th for June, July, August, September. April, May, June, July, August, September. So in February, March, continue revising your personal statement and your activities and experiences. In March and April, finalize it. Give your letter writers a friendly reminder that, hey, I'm going to be applying. Take the MCAT by spring. In May, early May, you can key in your application, meaning you're entering your coursework. And side note, many applications that get kicked back are maybe their coursework that they entered into the system doesn't match their transcript. So now there's a question, you might get your primary application kicked back. So we highly suggest you download an unofficial version of your transcript first, so that while you're entering your coursework, you have a go by, so that it's consistent once you actually do submit your transcript. And then July, August, you submit your secondary essays. Expect a 2 to 3 week turnaround. You could be writing 3 to 5 essays per school. And like I mentioned in the beginning, although GPA and MCAT is an initial threshold that schools will look at, oftentimes you will receive secondaries regardless of your GPA and MCAT. So just mentally prepare for that. And then your fourth year begins. In August, interviews can be granted starting in August, but keep in mind that many academically talented students might not even hear until March or April. So that is par for the course. So that's where letters of continued interest and letters of intent come into play. So talk with your pre-health advisors on campus if that is something that you need to keep in your back pocket for yourself in terms of, hey, I submitted my application, but mentally don't check out. You might need to keep doing some things that will help your application keep moving forward. And then mid-October, first acceptances can be sent out. But again, many students with great GPAs, great MCAT scores, maybe they had great interviews, still might not hear until later on in the year. And that is a very normal part of the process. So I just don't want you to be so mentally stressed, even though this is a stressful process. Try to manage it as best as possible. In the follow-up email, I will also send a link to our free pre-med management tool. And in this pre-med management tool, this is where you can start getting ideas of how many hours of these different buckets experiences should I be incorporating. And then also on the right is a screenshot of how you can start entering your activities and experiences. So supervisor name, city, state, was it paid or unpaid? What was the start date? What was the end date? Approximately how many hours? And this pre-med management tool, if you take the time to enter the information, it is an amazing first draft of your actual application. So when the application portal opens, you've been organizing all of your experiences. And again, this is free on our website. It's one of my favorite, most underutilized tools by people. So I highly suggest you start utilizing the free pre-med management tool to start organizing your experiences. And if you take the time to actually add your experiences in, there's a print all button. And once you print all without any extra formatting effort on your part, it spits out this PDF that now organizes your activities and experiences. And you can potentially share this with your letter writer. You can review this before interviews. You can use it to make sure that your LinkedIn is complete, whatever that, your CV, whatever that might be. So raise your MCAT score, better grades, better scores, better applications, better schools, but medical schools, whatever program is a good fit for you. Don't get so stuck on the brand names. Just find something that really matches your passion and a place where you can grow and prepare to be an amazing physician. So at the end of the day, be ready to submit for opportunities, be ready to confer with your pre-health advisor, be ready to ask for those letter of recommendation, be ready to draft your personal statement, be ready to take the MCAT, and be ready to key in your application. So hit all your marks. My email address is here, christine.cather@review.com. If you want to access your NSCS discount code or just talk through any questions, we are here to support you in your journey. So I know that was a lot of information, but there are a lot of different moving parts and pieces to the medical school application. And I'm hoping that this was helpful to you. And I appreciate just being able to join you to share that information. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Is that it? I think we're done. I will follow up. I'll send a copy, a PDF of this deck, as well as information on our pre-med management tool. You'll have my email then. So I think we are good to go, correct? Is that it? Anybody? Okay, do I go ahead and end this? All right, I think I then sign out if there are no questions, and I will be on the lookout for the list of RSVPs. Oh yes, I see a hand raised. Let me see how I can. Okay, I think I'm allowing you to talk if you want to unmute or add to the chat, Zakaria. You should be able to talk if you would like, or let me see if you are chatting at all. Please go ahead if you are able to unmute. I think you have a question I would love to be able to answer. I'm not sure if it's user error on my part, if I'm not if I'm not able to hear, but if you have a question, I would love to be able to get that answered for you or find the answer for you. Let me see. Are you able to chat? Are you guys seeing my message in the chat? Okay, if you have a question, I'm hoping you're able to add it to the chat. Or Zakaria, I think I unmuted you so that you can unmute if you are in a place that allows that. Okay, I don't know if the hand raise is intentional, but I don't want to keep you if we are wrapped up. I know that was a lot of information. Okay, with that, please, I'm going to stick my email in the chat. I'm hoping you're able to see it because I'm not able to hear the question. Christine.cather@review.com. Please email me. I will follow up with resources, and I'm so appreciative of you joining me today. Thank you so much. Thank you.